Welcome and good evening. Thanks for joining us. My name is Rachel Collins with the National Park Service. Thanks for being here as we share information with you concerning the Visitor Use Management Plan for Virginia's Triple Crown. This project and process is critical to the protection of the AT, and your comments throughout this process will help us inform the development of the Visitor Use Management Plan for this area of the AT. We wanted to start by going over just a couple of logistics before we dive into the heart of the presentation. I wanted to let folks know that we are on Microsoft Teams today, so please mute yourself during the presentation to reduce any background noise. You're welcome to turn your video camera on or off. Links are going to be posted into the chat for closed captioning, which is available. And I just saw that go into the chat. It's going to be open in another browser window for you to be joined if you want to view that live captioning. Throughout this presentation, we're going to be collecting questions as we go and saving them till the end. So at that time, you can check in about questions or ask more. Please note that we're going to answer as many questions as we can. And this meeting is going to be recorded, and we're going to be posting it online for anyone who couldn't make the meeting. And the closed captioning as well as the transcript will be posted online as well. So let's go ahead and jump into our agenda. We have 31 slides on our presentation. We're going to be introducing the main organizations that have been a part of this process, then go through a bit of orientation to the trail and background, and talk about the purpose and need for the project as well as key issues. Then we're going to get to management strategies, which are the strategies that the partners have identified that we're going to take to address these main issues. If you've participated in the public meetings or public comment back in March of 22, the management strategies are new pieces of information. These have been developed based on your input from those previous processes. We also wanted to start by saying too that we are so appreciative of your time and interest in this process. So thanks for carving out time out of your Monday evening to attend this meeting. We really want to hear people's thoughts, perspectives, and curiosities about this process. And we're really excited to hear your thoughts and have them be a meaningful and an important part of our process as we go forward with future management on the trail. So we have a couple different presenters on the presentation today. I'm going to actually ask them to introduce themselves when we get to the next slide, but you're going to be hearing from John Cannella, the acting superintendent, from myself, the visitor use project manager, the National Park Service, from Diana Christopoulos from the Roanoke ATC, Catherine Herndon-Powell from the Appalachian Trail Conservancy, as well as Sarah Bodo from the National Park Service. We have a number of different organizations that are joining us tonight and are on this presentation. Did want to give a chance for folks to introduce themselves and say hello. So we're going to go ahead and work our way through this list. So Catherine, if you want to jump on and say hi from, oh, sorry, I didn't start at the top of the list. Diana, can you jump on, say hi, introduce yourself from RATC?
I'm Diana Christopoulos. We're the 501c3 nonprofit in Virginia that maintains 120 miles of the trail, including the Triple Crown section. Great,
thanks. And Catherine from ATC.
Hey everybody, Catherine Herndon-Powell here from the Appalachian Trail Conservancy. I'm the regional manager for Central Virginia, working with partners like the Roanoke AT Club and our agency partners.
Great. And we have a crew with us joining from the Forest Service.
Hi, good evening. I'm Beth Christensen, and I'm the district ranger on the Eastern Divide Ranger District based out of Boxburg.
Yes, I'm Butler, the Deputy Forest Supervisor on the George Washington Jefferson National Forest.
Go ahead, Jake.
Yep, I'm Jake Lewis. I'm sitting in right now as our Recreation Program Manager out of the Roanoke office.
Hey, good evening, and sorry about the spinning camera. We're all sitting together, but I'm Job Tim. I'm the Forest Supervisor here on the George Washington and Jefferson National Forest. So good to see folks.
That's so fun that you guys are sitting together. Okay, we have Paula on from the county, from Roanoke County.
Hi, I'm Paula Binky, Transit Planner with Roanoke County, and I oversee the operations of the McAfee Knob Trailhead Shuttle.
And Jeremy's on from the commission.
Good evening. I'm Jeremy Holmes, Executive Director of the Roanoke Valley Allegheny Regional Commission. We're the regional planning agency that covers the 3 counties through which the AT moves, Botetourt, Craig, and Roanoke, and do community development, economic and development and transportation, all of which are affected by the visitor use plan. So we're excited to be here and to participate.
Great. And Brett,
Hi, Brett Randolph. I'm the Assistant District Traffic Engineer for Salem District. I have been leading a steering committee for a pedestrian bridge over Route 311 at McAfee Knob Trailhead. So I'm here to answer any questions anybody might have about that.
Great. And we've also been partnering with the USGS as well, along with on other parts of this. So let's go ahead and jump into the next slide to get a little bit oriented to the park and the purpose of the park. And I am going to turn this slide over to our acting superintendent, John Cannella. John, go ahead, take it away.
Great, thanks, Rachel. The Appalachian National Scenic Trail, or the AT, is an incredible national and international resource that traverses 14 states from Maine to Georgia. It's difficult to describe the AT with just a few bullet points on a slide, but we'll do our best. The trail is a little over 2,190 miles long. It's the largest protected corridor east of the Mississippi River, with approximately 300,000 acres. It was established by Congress through the National Trail System Act back in 1968 as one of the first national scenic trails. It's also been recognized as a unit in the National Park System. But as many as you know, the trail goes further back. It was first conceived by conservationists back in 1921. It was planned, constructed back in the 1920s and 30s by a number of volunteer hiking clubs that were brought together through the Appalachian Trail Conference, including the Roanoke Appalachian Trail Club. Trail clubs, the Appalachian Trail Conservancy, and many others have played a really significant role in the cooperative management system that helps that on-the-ground management with others, including U.S. Forest Service, the National Park Service, states, local governments, and more up and down the trail. Next slide, please. Now, I know this slide has got a little bit of text, but it's coming right from the 2015 foundation document for the National Scenic Trail. It was developed collaboratively with representatives from across the cooperative management system. Similar language can be found in the 1981 comprehensive plan for the Appalachian National Scenic Trail. And the purpose statement really helps to identify some of the specific reasons for the establishment of the trail, the nature and purpose of the trail. Another way to think about it is just what's most important about the trail. Key in the slide, you'll see the description of the trail, the important environments that it passes through, the travel on foot through unaided efforts across these significant landscapes in the nation, and that the AT's intended to be preserved for conservation, public use, enjoyment, and appreciation of these nationally significant natural, historic, and the cultural qualities of these areas through which it passes. And also, really importantly, is that recognition of volunteers, that cooperative community that helps to uphold and realize and steward the trail for the public. And we'll pass this back to you, Rachel.
Great, thanks. Related to the purpose of the park, we also have a construct that we use when we start to think about units that are established within the National Park Service system as these ideas of significance. And when we talk about the significance of the trail as a part of the National Park Service system, what we're talking about is what are those attributes and the values of the park that are so rare, unique, and exemplary about the trail that really makes it a unique contributor to the National Park Service system. And so these bullets are further written out in the Parks Foundation document, and we've posted a link to that into the chat. So you can go ahead and take a look and see how these are fully written. But we did want to provide a summary of what really makes the AT so significant as a part of our National Park Service system. This is the longest trail designated and is truly a testament to what we can accomplish through collaboration, volunteerism, and especially when we're united around a common purpose. To articulate this point, since its inception, the Roanoke ATC has contributed close to 8,000 volunteer hours and spoken with over 75,000 visitors. That is a huge contribution, and as John just noted, a testament to the volunteerism that happens up and down the trail and specifically within this community. The trail thrives under this partnership model, and it's an experience that invites visitors to an incredibly varied landscape so that they can have those direct experiences with the scenic enjoyment along a series of ranges up and down the trail. All of these people and all of these visitors and volunteers are centered in a space where we're inviting folks into an extensive and protected landscape that tells a really important story. And along with that story of shared communities and of visitors who are seeking enjoyment, self-reliance, and adventure along the trail. One of my favorite quotes from the Park Service's Second Century Report is that our spirits need the experience that the National Park Services offer. They help us understand what it means to be fully human. I love this quote. There's just no better place that I think really exemplifies these values than along the Appalachian Trail as a place for seeking out what we have as an outdoor experience, to have both challenge and to have adventure. Also, along this trail is one of the richest assemblages of species in the world, and we're seeing up and down the trail that it's showing and telling the story of human settlement along with all of the story of the natural communities. This is a great way to interact with these communities and the resources. So when we take all of this into context, I think it's really important background to be thinking about what is the purpose of this project and what are those values that we're really trying to exemplify and protect when we start to think about what it is to manage for the future of this section of the trail. So the purpose of this project is to really lean into these values and develop strategies that really help protect the resources and critical values that help us identify ways that opportunities and visitors to safely use, experience, and enjoy the trail. So this plan is going to show us about management options that really look and lean into those values. So let's look at when we say the Triple Crown and Virginia's Triple Crown, what are we talking about? Let's look at the map on the next slide. The visitor use management plan that we're talking about in this project is focused on the Appalachian National Scenic Trail between Virginia 620 and Virginia 652, which includes Tinker Cliffs, McAfee Knob, Dragon's Tooth, just to the west of Roanoke, Virginia. This section is also referred to as Virginia's Triple Crown. We also know that there is a connected experience for a lot of folks as they move through these areas. So we want to be talking about what does the arrival to trail look like. We want to be thinking about those connected experiences up and down the trail. We want to be thinking about how do we travel through this space? How do we provide a really comprehensive visitor experience and protect the area and the resources and values as a community of the things that look different there? So we're going to be looking at those opportunities and issues along the side trails as long as the ones that are along the main stem of the AT through this section. As we noted, there are a couple key locations that we want to make sure that we're thinking about as we start to think about these areas. We are going to be talking about Tinker Cliffs, specific strategies for there. We'll get to that a little bit later in the presentation, as well as McAfee Knob and the Dragon's Tooth as some of the major areas along this section. So let's go ahead and dive into the real purpose of this project. We spent some time thinking about it and shared this with you in the previous meetings about why this plan is needed. What really brought us to the table is the need to address strategies that help us understand and manage for increasing visitor use. We're going to be talking more about that in a minute, but really wanted to make sure that we emphasize this purpose of the plan is to develop strategies that will help us protect resources and determine opportunities for visitors to safely use, experience, and enjoy the trail. So why was this project needed? Well, there's a lot of folks who are trying to access these resources. It's a very busy section of the trail, and we want to look forward. We want to be thinking about what are the quality conditions, what are the quality social conditions along the trail, and how do we continue to protect that into the future so that we're providing an experience for the long-term duration of this trail. And on the next couple of slides, we're going to dive a little bit deeper into what these issues are that really drive the need for this plan. The first of our key issues have to do with increasing visitation. You can see that while we have increasing visitor use along the trail, that is really good news. We love that folks are out and using the trail. They're discovering the rich experiences that are provided there. But the current strategies that are in our toolbox or that we have to manage use make it hard to just keep pace with this growth. And so part of the purpose of this project is to help trail managers discover and implement tools that they need to provide a more sustainable and enjoyable experience along the trail. So that's what we're hoping to share as we present into the strategies on the next few slides. Additionally, we've seen that as use increases, people are looking for places to go and potentially spread out and seek a quieter experience. And that's causing some impacts to critical resources, including soils and water, wildlife and cultural resources, and other values along the trail. We know that visitors are looking for places to spread out in the day and at overnight in the landscape, and we can't necessarily support all of this with the current tools all of the time. So we wanted to take a look at this and think about where could we be accommodating use and what does that look like. We also wanted to look for new tools to support and use and manage for a more sustainable experience for people and resources. We wanted to look at basic trail amenities and be thinking about appropriate resources. So in 2021, we removed over 500 gallons of trash from the different trailheads. This is a symptom of a larger issue. We wanted to be making specific choices about what services and support fit into the character of the trail. And this goes back to our values about protecting the critical resources along this section. So as we start to resolve these issues and start to be forward thinking, we're looking at what are we solving for, what are the goals overall, and one of the goals is to be applying a framework to be looking at how do we right size the right facilities in the right places for the right uses to make sure that the trail is supported on the whole. So I want to talk a little bit more about what does collaboration look like for this between local AT management as well as the other management agencies as we head into project goals. We have a couple main project goals with this project. One, we wanted to take the Visitor Use Management Framework from the Interagency Visitor Use Management Council and apply it to the trail. The Interagency Visitor Use Management Council is a group of 6 agencies that came together to provide a shared framework and tools and guidance that can help us manage visitor use on federal lands and waters. This is a shared framework across the agencies and starts with really understanding where we are, what our resources are, and foundations, which we talked about at the beginning of the presentation. Then we also want to talk through what is the problem we're trying to solve, what are our desired conditions when it relates to resources and experiences, and then start to think about how do we leverage a diverse toolbox to get us from where we are to where we want to be on desired conditions. To address the project goals and issues, the next set of slides that we'll present are really the meat of the presentation are the management strategies. Diana with RATC and Catherine with the ATC are going to present those. The Visitor Use Management Plan contains a whole list of management strategies that the partners believe could be implemented to address these issues that we just discussed. The goal is to identify a reasonable range of strategies to implement. It's a really long list, but it's a really dynamic section of trails. So we're going to try to break it down for you. Some of them will be implemented earlier. Others are going to be implemented later on. Some we may never implement if the early ones are resolving the issues. So to break this down, we've organized the strategies for this presentation into segment-wide strategies, strategies for Tinker Cliffs, strategies for McAfee Knob, and the Dragon's Tooth area. And we've further categorized them into topical areas such as camping, education, and enforcement. And because there's so many, I'd really encourage folks to go on to the park planning website, review them in the draft VUM plan. Well, we've got several slides, just there was no way to get all of that content into a slide deck. So we'd really encourage folks to take a look at them. And we're going to highlight a few of the major strategies and standout ones on the next few slides. So with that, we can get into the first section of segment-wide strategies. And I will turn it over from here to Diana.
Thanks, Rachel. So as they noted at the beginning, you'll have time to ask questions at the end. And also, if you want to type one into the chat while we're carrying on here, it's good to do that as well, because then we'll be thinking about a good answer for you. And in terms of comments, this is probably the meat of what you're going to want to comment about, but your comments that you make here won't really be part of the record. So what you'll be thinking about is, what did I like about this? What did I not like about it? What would I change about it? What would make it better? And those are the things that you need to comment on, either by doing it electronically or dropping in with us tomorrow at the Salem Civic Center, starting at 5 o'clock, and you can fill out a card there and do it. So that's where we're headed with this. Okay, here we go. Segment-wide strategies. We're starting with facilities and transportation. So this would be across all three of them. That's the Tinker Mountain parking. What we want to do is document where the parking is authorized and how much should be there, and then enforce the size limits and restrict overflow parking and unauthorized road use. We want to evaluate the need for a permanent day use shuttle, which a lot of you have probably seen. We're testing it out right now. We want to evaluate and develop the need for facilities like bathrooms, trash cans, signs, drainage, and fencing. And we want to establish and maintain universally accessible facilities like access routes, parking spaces, restrooms, and kiosks. And finally, road crossings, safer evaluation, improvement, and maintenance of safer road crossings for all three areas. Now I'm going to turn it over to Catherine.
Thanks, Diana. Here are some segment-wide management strategies that relate to the trails themselves and partnerships. So we want to continually evaluate, improve, and maintain the trail tread and its associated structures, especially in those high-volume areas. We'd like to encourage visitors to stay on the trail to protect the resources, encourage land protection by protecting view sheds, or to protect the view sheds. And we want to create a communication plan among the partners and other community stakeholders so that we can advance projects that will improve the visitor experience.
Going on to campsites, shelters, and managed access. And once again, this is for all three areas. Create an inventory of all the campsites for the Triple Crown. Evaluate campsites to see which ones are problem areas and where we might put better sites. Improve the spacing if you're backpacking between the camping options, and develop some new group sites away from the existing campgrounds, camping areas. Use sustainable camping best management practices, implement those so that the size of the camping and the food storage is a lot more sustainable than a lot of what's going on right now. And then finally, improve and promote the Appalachian National Scenic Trail voluntary overnight registration system. You may not be even aware of it, but this is being used pretty well in some places so that you can reserve ahead of time and you can get an idea how busy the area is before you go into it. Back to you, Catherine.
All right, once again, we're still at the whole segment-wide, all three jewels of the Triple Crown strategies related to information and education. So we want to develop informational materials for locations that would include the permitted activities, the rules and regulations, and leave no trace practices. We do want to share, advertise alternative trails, a recommended direction of travel, perhaps where there are loops, and non-peak use times, so folks can plan to visit, when it's not as crowded. We want to generally improve the trip planning information that's available to folks ahead of their visit. So that includes websites and social media and guidebooks and maps and all that. We want to improve the maps and signage that are on the trail currently to include information, potentially interpretive information about various destinations that are on and off the trail, as well as the history of the Catawba Valley. And we want to improve our communications with local universities. Back to you, Diana.
Thanks. So here's the last one on segment-wide management strategies, and that's enforcement. We want to install signage in the parking areas so people understand what the rules are, and also that would enable tickets to be written if people are not following those rules. We want to resolve access issues for pedestrian crossings by using crosswalks or bridges or other means that make it safer to get between one part of the trail and another that has a highway. And finally, we want to prohibit organized hiker feeds within the Triple Crown segment.
All right, now we are getting to the specific locations. So these are management strategies for the Tinker Cliffs area, and I'm going to start with the trailhead. the Andy Lane Trail trailhead. We'd like to improve the signage and wayfinding. I want to work with local partners to improve and formalize the parking area so we can address safety concerns and relieve the pressure on all the other parking areas within the whole Virginia Triple Crown segment. Those improvements could include paving, marking spaces, providing accessible parking areas. And we want to ensure that the parking lot and the associated facilities meet universally accessible standards. Diana?
So still on Tinker Cliffs, now we're looking at camping and trails. And first thing is to redirect unauthorized ridge campers to other locations. There are only 7 authorized camping areas in the National Park Service part of this Triple Crown. And so it's not okay to camp on top of the ridge. So we'd like to move those campers away. Identify a location for a group campsite between McAfee Knob and Tinker Cliffs. There's a lot of demand there. Improve the signage for the campsites and the designated view sheds and improve the actual trail. It's got a lot of steps on it. It's really steep. If we could get a broader trail through easements or voluntary sales, we could create switchbacks and it would be an easier trail for hikers to navigate. And that's it for Tinker Cliffs.
All right, so now we're moving to McAfee Knob. So I'll start with the management strategies related to camping. We want to close and restore user-created campsites. Those are unauthorized campsites since camping is restricted in this area to the designated sites. We would like to establish 2 dedicated group camping sites that are near to McAfee Knob. Use a voluntary registration system for those group sites. And redesign the camping facilities at Campbell Mountain Shelter and Pig Farm Campsite, which is right next to Campbell, for better resource protection and visitor experience.
Still on McAfee Knob, looking at the trail and the knob, we would encourage the use of approved routes. There are a lot of little routes getting created by people. We'd like that not to happen. It's not good for the resource. Identify and build more sustainable trails, and then remove the old ones so that you don't accidentally hike on them. When the pedestrian bridge is finally completed, which is coming up not too long from now, and we finish the connector trails that we communicate the new route to the public. Provide more education about the history of the section. There's got a lot of history to it. Improve the signage. Add an information kiosk. If you're coming down from McAfee Knob, when you hit the fire road, we want to put a kiosk there so that you can understand that you could use the fire road or the trail to get back to the parking lot. A lot of hikers get confused there. And then finally, assess the condition of the trail and the access and fix all the deficiencies on this section. Catherine.
All right, one more for McAfee Knob, talking about the trailhead. We'd like to develop the parking area to include hardening the parking lot surface, having designated parking spaces that would include accessible parking, installing a drainage system, define the parking lot perimeter, provide a shuttle stop, install trash and comfort stations, and upgrading the parking lot to meet universally accessible requirements. That's a lot, right? And we, as Diane, I think already mentioned, we want to have trip planning information and signage right there available in the parking lot as well.
Okay, last strategy slide, and this is on Dragon's Tooth. We want to educate and encourage visitors to leave no trace. We want to limit camping in sensitive areas, and we've really neglected to do that for a long time, so that's going to be a change. And restore the impacts to the unsustainable locations and inform people about how the system is going to work now, as well as encouraging a loop hike that already exists that includes the Boy Scout Trail, the Dragon's Tooth Trail, and the Appalachian Trail. Look at options for safe crossing of Virginia 11 between the Dragon's Tooth parking and the North Mountain Trail and work with Virginia Department of Transportation on that. And evaluate the feasibility of hardening the lower part of the driveway into the parking lot. We were afraid we're going to lose a small car in there one of these days, so we'd like to look at some options on that. And those are the strategies. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Diana and Catherine, for sharing some of those highlighted strategies. We just have a few more slides, and then we will get to the Q&A portion of tonight's meeting. So First of all, as you probably are aware, the public comment period is open now through the end of the month. So we really do want to hear from you. The plan is draft right now, and when we see and summarize all the comments that we've received, we will take a look at making changes to the draft plan based on your comments. So those thoughts are really very valuable, and we really appreciate your attention and time in that. We've dropped a link in the chat, and it's also available on the screen. And that link will take you to the location to provide your formal comments. That is the preferred method to do it online. However, if that doesn't work for you, you can also provide written comments to us at tomorrow's in-person meeting, or send any written comments to the address listed on this screen. Let's go to the next slide. All right. So when you do submit your comments, either online or on the comment card, we have included these 4 questions as questions to help you focus your thoughts and what we're looking for. So the first area to comment is really just share your thoughts about the need to manage visitor use impacts on this segment of the Appalachian National Scenic Trail. Do you think it's needed? Do you think it's not? Let us know why. The second question is, are there management strategies in the draft plan that you support or you would really like to see the partners prioritize? The third one is, are there management strategies in the draft plan that you do not support? And for all of these questions, please tell us why, give us your rationale. That'll really help us understand if and how we need to change the draft plan and future considerations to have. Finally, we have a question, just do you have any other questions or concerns about the project? And you're welcome to share those as well. All right. As a reminder, we also have an in-person public meeting that is happening tomorrow night from 5 to 8 p.m. This meeting will be open house style, so there will not be a presentation. However, a large number of the partners will be there, ready and happy to chat with you about questions you have or ideas you have. And there'll be a bunch of posters so you can walk around and take a look and learn more about the plan and meet the planning team. That'll occur at the Salem Civic Center in the community room in Salem. Let's go to the next slide. So this slide just shows our project timeline. So we're kind of nearing the end of the project. Right now we're in this public review of the draft plan. This fall, we will be looking at all those comments we receive and identifying how we might change the draft plan. And then in December, we hope to publish the revised final plan. We'll also publish a summary of the comments that we heard. And at that point in time, the partners can start implementing some of the strategies. So with that, we are now at the Q&A session of this meeting. And we have about another hour here left in the meeting. We have a bunch of folks on the call who are ready to talk, answer any questions you may have. I will say, just reiterate, we really want to receive your formal comments in writing, either via the website or written. So tonight, we would love to answer questions that you have or talk about things that help clarify what you're looking at. And I would say feel free to type any questions you have into the chat. Or if you'd like, you can also use the raise hand tool and we'll call on you. I'll be moderating, so I'll try to call on somebody from the planning team who I think would be a great person to answer your question. And also, if you are on the phone, if you're calling in and you want to unmute yourself, you won't be able to raise your hand, but you can press *6 to unmute yourself. And if you are on the phone, just go ahead and do that and then speak up, because that's the only way we'll be able to know that you have a question for us. All right, so I do see that the questions that we have so far are about whether we can get a copy of the slides. And what we are going to do is save this recording of this presentation, and we will post it on the website, on project website. That'll probably occur later this week or early next week, and we'll email the email contact list with that information. As far as getting a copy of the slides, unfortunately, they are not accessibly compliant, and so we can't post them in a public space. If you really individually want to get a copy of the slides, you can email me, and I'll put my email in the chat, and I would be happy to share those to folks. So I'll put that in the chat right now. Okay. Okay, so we do have a question, and it's on the shuttle. And so I would think maybe Paula would be the best person to answer this, perhaps. And the question is, what is the schedule of the shuttle? For example, days of the week.
Yes, perfect. The shuttle runs on Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays, and on holidays that happen to fall on a Monday.
Great, thank you, Paula.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's see. It looks like we have a comment from Cosmo. The issues with this area seem to be caused by the number of visitors at popular times. Are there plans to limit visitor numbers, such as a campsite reservation system, parking enforcement, outreach to organized group users, timed entry permits for day use? So I guess I'll ask, does anyone on the planning team want to respond to that question? And if so, feel free to raise your hand, and we'll call on you. Yeah, Diana.
Yeah, I see Catherine raised hers too. There's no specific plan to try to limit usage. I think it's try to make it more orderly. And so I think if we have well-organized parking lots and a good shuttle system, we won't get into so many times the situation that occurs spring and fall on nice weekends where it's just a madhouse and it's unsafe for people to park or to cross the road, particularly at McAfee, but sometimes at Dragon's Tooth. So I think it's more a matter of bringing order to it. Also, by giving better information, if we use the voluntary registration system, people that are thinking about backpacking this section will just be able to get online and get some sense of, is it looking crowded when I want to go? Could I move my hike a little different? So it's just, I think it's much more to have it more user-friendly and more accessible to good information rather than trying to limit who can come.
Great, thank you, Diana. All right, well, I'll keep moving on to another question, and this is from Ed and Anna Shore. What methods of conflict resolution will be used for the voluntary reservation system if someone reserves and others are already there?
I can answer that if you'd like.
Oh, yeah, I see Morgan has his hand up. Go ahead, Morgan.
Hi, yeah, this is Morgan Somerville. I'm ATC's Director of Visitor Use Management. And through the Georgia Visitor Use Management planning process, we created the online voluntary registration system called ATCamp, atcamp.org. You can go on and see that. It covers the whole trail, but many areas have not been totally built out yet. There is no attempt at conflict resolution, but what it does do, as Diana suggested, is it does tell you how many other people are already reserved for a site. If a site has a obvious capacity, that can be listed, and so you can compare the number of people registered for the capacity and see if it's good to go somewhere else. So it is also a system that is based upon the Great Smoky Mountains National Park permit system, so that if the local AT managers ever felt it was appropriate, it could be turned into a regular permit system.
Thank you, Morgan. And it looks like Diana posted in there the link to that voluntary reservation system. Okay. Are there other questions out there? And folks who are on the phone, feel free to *6 to unmute yourself if you'd like to just speak up. Or if anyone who is on their computer wants to ask a verbal question, go ahead and raise your hand in the raise hand feature and we'll get to you. Yeah, thanks, Catherine, for posting. Those are really good questions. We really appreciate it. And maybe there aren't additional questions, and maybe some of you folks are going to be able to make it to the in-person meetings, or just take a look at the visitor use management plan. All right, we do have another question here. Are there any plans to incorporate or upgrade parking at the Virginia Tech Sustainability Center? And is there a volunteer from the planning team that would like to raise their hand to speak up to this? Okay, it looks like Catherine.
Sure. Yeah. We are really grateful to the Roanoke County and the Virginia Tech for establishing that option. I think currently we've been studying the usage that lot is currently getting. There's a trail counter out there, and trying to get the word out. So I think right now the main focus is on letting folks know that that is an option. Of course, it's not an option for overnight parking, but it's an excellent way to get to the McAfee and to hopefully relieve some pressure on the McAfee parking lot. So that's the main way right now that we're incorporating it, but it's certainly part of our whole vision. We just don't see issues that really need to be addressed immediately in the same way that we have in those other 3 parking lots where we have specific strategies.
Thank you, Catherine. All right, we have a couple more questions coming in. This is great. Okay, so this next one is probably going to be for Brett Randolph, and it's about the I remember previously reading about a plan to build a pedestrian bridge at the McAfee Knob parking area to make crossing safer. Is that plan still alive? Or is this new project part of a larger response to the general problems?
Yeah, great question. Actually, the pedestrian bridge was just recently advertised for construction. So it is absolutely moving along. It's on the, I guess you would say, the north side of the parking lot, and is by all accounts fully funded, out there to get bids. We hope that the bids come back within our allowable funding. We should know more about that sort of probably toward the end of the year, as to exactly who bid on it and how. So yeah, it's going to be a real improvement for safety, and then we'll work with the ATC and the Park Service to realign the AT trail to tie in to the park to the bridge as well. So.
Yep, that's a super exciting project. Thank you so much, Brett. All right, I'll move on to the next question. What consideration is being given between expanding parking on site versus expanding the shuttle service, reaching all the sites, etc.? And this is a really great question. It's always a balance. Is there anyone from the planning team that would like to take a stab at responding to this question?
Sarah,
Yeah.
this is Paula with Roanoke County. Oh, go ahead, Diana.
No, go ahead, Paula. I'll follow you.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Yes, definitely. We are always evaluating, looking at, and a lot of what we take into consideration is, what the need is. Obviously, we feel like the shuttle has been extremely successful at McAfee. We are obviously working with the Forest Service currently to see if there's the potential to bring the shuttle to Dragon's Tooth, and just really looking at figuring out where the demand is and where that we can work with our partners to come up with the best solution to meet all the needs that's effective.
And I would add that it's been pretty terrific to see the way the county has gotten involved in this, because it's added a great new partner. VDOT we've been working with now for quite a long while, and that's been really great. I think that this is one of the questions that the plan doesn't try to resolve. It's just saying, let's take a closer look at this. And I think, again, it's that balancing act. We need to have a more organized parking system, particularly at McAfee. And if you start thinking about, we would never satisfy the need if we just wanted to have as many parking spaces as everybody ever wanted. So we're not going to try to do that. And I think, speaking again, just from an environmental standpoint, adding a bunch of new parking means cutting down a lot of trees and bulldozing and, doing a lot of environmental damage to the area. So it's something that might get considered, but it's something that we would go into, I think, pretty carefully. And that's where the shuttle, maybe someday we'll have an electric shuttle, which would be kind of cool. And, the technologies are always changing. So this plan is just laying out the balancing act that we're going to try to do. And that will be discussion that people like Joey actually will be able to get involved in as a leadership volunteer in the RATC.
Wonderful. Thank you for those responses. Okay, it looks like Morgan also posted in there that atcamp.org also has the capability to register groups for any group camping areas that may be established in the Triple Crown area. So thanks for that, Morgan. All right, we have another question. What is the timeline for implementation of the initial management strategies, and when will their efficacy be reviewed? 3 years, 5 years, for example? Great question. Anyone on the planning team want to take a stab at this? Lots of paused folks here.
Cosmo, I'm kind of thinking about why we got into this in the first place. And I think it wasn't so much that we wanted to achieve things in a certain time frame. And as a matter of fact, just as often happens with strategic planning, as we started discussing things, we're already doing them. And so other things that we haven't started on, we feel that we'll have potentially a big reason we're doing this, a better chance to get them funded because they're mentioned in the plan. And getting funded in the for the Park Service is a little like trying to get a bill passed in Congress. It might be this year, it might be next year, it might be 5 years from now. We don't know when the time is right. So I'm not sure. I think we would be reviewing it on a pretty constant basis, but in formal terms, I don't see it as something that has an exact lifespan. I think it's more like, here's the general direction we're heading in, and we're going to work on whichever strategies we like, that the public likes, that we can afford to do. And whichever ones work at that time, those are the ones we're going to do. That's how I would see it.
But you don't think that the escalating impacts, because use is always going up, you don't feel that those will get even more out of hand if there's not a timeline for implementation of stuff?
Well, we're already implementing things like the better camping setup at Catawba Mountain. That's all laid out already. A lot of the things that are on here are already a little bit in process. So I think the one that really is aching for immediate help is the parking lot at McAfee. That's the big unresolved one. And I think if nothing happens on that in a couple of years, we'll probably be making a lot of noise. But I think, Cosmo, we are doing those things. We've already really, before we even, 4 years ago, we started working on some of them. So we're doing them already.
Have you noticed they're a success? Have you noticed any trends that are improving because of what you've been doing?
I would say one thing that we've noticed, and Catherine, jump in and tell me if you think I'm wrong on this, because of the MACV-NOB task force in large part, and the presence of an NPS ranger, which we didn't have until just a few years ago. And he's year round, and of course the continuation and expansion of the ATC Ridge Runner. I think that we have less trash than we used to have by a fairly significant amount. People know that there's eyes on the trail. We get road groups still. But I think in general, the condition of the trail, the amount of trash is better noticeably than it was
Good.
when we started.
Yeah, and
Catherine, what do you
I would
think?
add to that that we've had some areas that have definitely recovered where there had been camping impacts, especially up right near McAfee Knob. I think 5 to 10 years ago, we were sort of hopeless about ever being able to um, really discourage people from camping there, and now we've seen that with enough effort. Also, like the switchbacks at Dragon's Tooth, the shortcuts. There's a lot of places where we've been able to muster, a level of attention through amazing volunteer effort. The volunteer ridge runners that are RHEC volunteers, to solve problems that we previously thought were just sort of, we were ready to throw our hands up and say, there's no helping
And
it. So
Beth, maybe you could say something about Dragon's Tooth. Really, a lot of the things that were stated in the strategies there are things we're starting to implement right now. Maybe you could just say a little about that.
Yeah, when I was listening to the conversations and thinking about all the topics that were brought up, especially concerning Dragon's Tooth and Tinker Cliffs and really McAfee as well, the Forest Service is a multiple use agency, and one of the goals is the greatest good for the greatest amount, and trying to work together with the partners to figure out how to still care for the land and serve the people, but also, provide that opportunity and provide that experience for the forest visitor or I guess the Triple Crown visitor, and trying to figure out ways to still have benefits to the land, but also provide a service and an experience for the public. So those are kind of the things I think about when I think about Dragon's Tooth and Tinker and incorporating it into the whole.
So, Beth, you're on mute if you're still talking.
Oh, no, I'm good.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much. Really great discussion. I see, Morgan, you have your hand up. Did you also want to respond to this question?
Yeah, I'm just going to provide a little wider context. There are 4 other formal visitor use management planning processes going on along the AT right now, the first of which was in 2015 in Georgia on the Chattahoochee National Forest. There were a number, as echoing what Diana and Catherine were saying, there were a number of immediate things that happened, positive outcomes from it, but also some have taken a lot longer. For instance, the Forest Service's Region 8 food storage policy that was announced this spring was an outcome of that 2015 plan too. It just took 8 years to get there.
Okay. Thank you so much. All right, the really good discussion there. I will move on to some questions that popped up for Brett again. And maybe I'll start with the one just following up on the pedestrian bridge at McAfee. With that going out to bid, what is the timeline for completion?
So yeah, good question. The project is about a year-ish. I expect that pretty much the entire calendar year of 2024, that there will be construction going on. There also will be impacts to the existing parking, where the parking lot itself will be closed during the construction. So there is significant impacts at that point. But it is probably at most 12 months. I would expect that it probably can be done within 8 to 10 months. So hopefully by the end of the fall of 2024, it will be completely done.
Thank you, Brett. And this next question might be for Brett, but it might be for some of the other folks on the planning team. And it is, how is VDOT addressing the safety at other road crossings? Newport, Blacksburg roads, not just 311 or 311 road crossing.
Well, I'll be glad to jump in here. So a lot of our focus has been on the sort of higher volume crossings that we have with daily visitors and recreational tourists. Some of the other crossings are maybe not as active with your daily tourists who aren't used to hiking, who aren't paying as much attention, who maybe aren't as prepared. So we haven't specifically been asked that I'm aware of to look at some of the other crossings that were specifically mentioned. Certainly not something that we're unwilling to do, but our resources are pretty limited in those locations to things like hiker warning signs or something pretty basic. If you were looking for something more substantial, as far as improving enhanced sight distance and things like that, it really gets outside of the right of way of what VDOT can actually do. And I might turn that back over to ATC or Diana or somebody to maybe expand on.
I think there's been 3 or 4. There certainly was one very large assessment of all the road crossings of the AT, and the ones, some of them, certainly the McAfee one is on that list. 220 is pretty high on that list. And so it's sort of, I think from the club and maybe ATC standpoint, it comes down to what hurts the worst, and that's, I think the ones you're talking about, although they have issues, are not as dangerous, at least have never been identified as being that dangerous.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay, I'll move on to another question, and this one might be for Catherine or Diana as well. And it is, do you collaborate with landowners who are not physically adjacent to the trail, but maybe in the viewshed?
Andrew should be on this call, Catherine, but you can brag on it for him. You should tell.
Sure, yeah, we've actually been able to do a lot of viewshed protection in recent years through both land acquisition of parcels that are within the viewshed primarily in between McAfee, Knob, and Tinker cliffs, as well as a little bit over by Dragon's Tooth, and also through conservation easements. So this has been identified as one of our priority landscapes trail-wide from Georgia to Maine. This is one of the main priority landscapes viewsheds that we are working actively to protect.
And I would add to that a partner in that effort is the Blue Ridge Land Conservancy, which Virginia, many of you may not know it, but of all the states, Virginia may have the best benefits to landowners for land easements, conservation easements of any state. There are federal benefits and state benefits. And the Blue Ridge Land Conservancy has also, like the ATC, identified the Catawba Valley and the AT viewshed, and in fact, a larger part of the AT viewshed in other areas, as a priority area to work with landowners to get conservation easements. These are all voluntary, and it's beneficial to the landowner because it's in perpetuity, and it's beneficial to the trail and us because it's in perpetuity. So that is a very active strategy that's happening right now. And Catherine, I'm thinking between McAfee and Tinker, something close to 1,000 acres has been protected in the last few years.
I think it's getting close to that number. I don't have the number right off the top of my head. And it's been my boss Andrew Downs is the person who could really quote all of that and wasn't able to join us tonight. But just from me watching this process, it's been really great to see how many willing sellers there are of folks who are happy to see their land protected. They didn't want to see it become a bunch of housing developments or anything like that would be kind of less compatible with the Catawba Valley, the beauty that they love. So it's been nice. It's been kind of a win-win in most cases for the landowners and for us and for the American public to enjoy this view.
And we would be remiss if we didn't point out that the counties have also helped a lot on this. Both Roanoke County, and when you get about halfway to between the two, between Tinker and McAfee, you're in Botetourt County. Both have recently updated their comprehensive plans. Is that the right name, Paula? And the ones for Catawba Valley in both cases want to keep this rural character with only development right where there's already a community center. So everybody's on the same page with this of wanting to have what we've got because it's so special. So that's why it's the partnership. It's just pretty comprehensive.
Fantastic. Thanks for those responses. Okay, our next question is from Cheryl with Visit BBR, and it's for Brett. How can we get info out to the visitors about the parking lot being closed and where to direct them?
That is also an excellent question. I know that a lot of information has gone out on Roanoke County's website in relation to some of the shuttle service that'll be offered during the time that the parking lot is closed. As of right now, it hasn't really been advertised that much. Part of our steering committee is going to start transitioning now to that discussion about what options we have. I know that Roanoke County had to secure funding to continue the shuttle service through construction before we could go into that level of detail. So as of right now, I don't have a perfect answer for you, but I will say that is our next meeting. Will probably be a lot of focus on how we're going to roll that out and what our plan is to sort of make sure that people understand the shuttle availability, its hours of service, and also the available parking that is down Old Catawba Road, where we are trying to kind of avoid having more parking. We are doing some more restrictions of parking there just to make sure it doesn't become a nightmare. And we're also looking at other, what impacts this is going to have to other locations like Dragon's Tooth, for example. So we've had those ongoing discussions as well. I will let somebody else jump in if I'm missing something, but in general, I think our steering committee really is going to start that focus. I don't expect that the parking lot's going to be closed until probably March. At the earliest would be my guess, because real construction that impacts the area isn't going to really happen in the winter. And certainly in the dead of winter, I don't think we're going to have too much specific impact. So earlier, I think I might have said that it would be closed the entire time of construction. That's probably not accurate. It probably will be the first couple of months they're going to be doing activities where they can maintain the parking lot open. And then, pretty much the peak season, though, throughout the entire peak of spring through summer and the peak of fall, you can pretty much expect that there will be closures, and we will get that information out. Obviously, there's a kiosk and stuff up there as well, but I don't want to speak out of turn because it gets a little bit where a lot of the involvement of other stakeholders comes into play here. So if anybody else wants to jump in and add some information, please, by all means.
Okay. If anyone wants to add additional information, just jump on in. If not, that's a good start to hear from Brett. And it sounds like Cheryl will be interested in how that continues to evolve.
Yeah, it's an excellent question. And I wish I had a great answer. Like I said, we were definitely in a little bit of a holding point on how much we were going to disseminate to the public until we knew we had funding for that shuttle service to go through construction, which we, thank God, do have, thanks to the county and their hard work. So that allows us to really concentrate our efforts now on that outreach and what's the best avenues to do that. So we do have a meeting coming up on the 22nd where I'm sure this is going to be a big topic of discussion.
Okay, wonderful. All right, I'm not seeing any further questions at this time, but we'll give you a little time if you are typing madly, which it looks like we just got one in. Let's see here. Okay, so Cosmo, you said it'd be helpful for readers of the plan if there was a graphic matrix that laid out the desired conditions and associated management strategies, indicators and thresholds for the primary sites included in the plan. It's difficult to keep all these in mind reading the text for each section on separate pages. Thank you for that comment, and we definitely are interested in improving the readability and just even for the partners, the ongoing functionality of the plan. So we'll take that into consideration. Well, I think
I do want to add one more thing, Sarah, back to clarify one other topic. Another reason why we haven't gone too much into the detail yet is we have to see what our bids come back from the contractor. If for some reason that we don't get bids that are within our budget, that could potentially delay the project. We all are crossing our fingers that that won't happen, and I think we're going to be in pretty good shape. But we don't want to jump the gun on saying that we're going to have the parking lot completely closed, only to find out that we need additional funding or we have to rebid or re-advertise the project. So I want to clarify that point too, that that's another little bit of a holding pattern on disseminating too much information out.
Yep, that's an important point. Thanks for clarifying that. Right. Well, at this point in time, if other folks have questions that they want to either raise their hand or type in the chat, we're still here. But it does seem like it's winding down quite a bit. So,
question.
oh yeah,
Phone.
jump
Did we
in.
indicate gauge the willingness of the landowner of the Andy Lane area to provide an easement?
Okay, so the question was, is there any willingness from the Andy Lane Trailhead adjacent owner to provide an easement? Okay, great. Thanks for your question. Does anyone from the planning team want to respond to that? Looks like maybe Catherine.
Sure. Yeah, I'll say we're just actively exploring that right now. And Roanoke Cement, of course, is the landowner that the Andy Lane Trail, most of it actually passes through and where the parking lot is. And just want to give them a shout out as being a really great partner and coming to the table with lots of ideas and support for improvements to that area. So we're looking at it pretty closely.
Thanks for that question, and thank you, Catherine. And yes, if anyone else who is calling in wants to add a question, if you press *6, which is *M, that should unmute you and you can ask a question. Okay, well, I think we maybe have, oh, we got another one. Every time I say that, that's the key to get another one. So, okay, this one just said thank you. Appreciate that. Yeah, so I think we will wrap up today's meeting, and it's already been said, but thank you so much for joining today. I know you all have busy schedules, so we really appreciate you spending this time to engage with us. Really great questions and some conversation. And really, when you comment on the plan, this will inform revision of the plan and as well as implementation. In the chat, we also posted an email address. If you have additional questions that didn't get answered today, or pop up later, feel free to email those to that email address. Or of course, you can show up at tomorrow's in-person meeting. We'd love to see you there. But with that, I will just say thank you again to all the presenters, to all the partners, and everybody who participated in this meeting. And with that, we'll say good night, and we hope to see some comments from you.
Thank you.